Okay? So, select option serial. I know it's a little boring, but when you'll access this device, you'll start to have fun. So, serial. Now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna use which COM 4. Do I have COM 1? No.
COM 4.
Which COM 4?
4.
Now that's why it was important to know that which COM port I was connected to. Like I would have given COM 1, I would not be able to access. I could have tried 2 failure, 3 failure, 4. So I do not want to go from 0 or 1 to 100 in order to just test them. Let's just go over there, see which my port number is, and then we'll get it. Okay? So COM 4, speed, it's 9600. What does this mean? Let's just skip for today. Keep every other information as default. Okay. Now, what I'll do, I'll go to open. It's on a different screen. Okay, something has happened. Let me increase the font here so that everyone could read this. Okay. So now, what can I do? I can access a PA220. So what is the username and password? This is a factory resetted device firewall. So there is no proper username and password. Default username and default password is admin. Admin. Yeah, this time is incorrect. Please do not get offended with this time. So I have accessed this device. I can do a show command. I could do a configure command. What does these command means? Do not get confused with it. The purpose of this discussion today is how to get access to this device. And we got access. Now you have got the access. Like for instance, I was a level 1 engineer. Someone has asked, my senior have asked to me that, hey, please provide me console access. I have done all the basics. Now I will give him the remote session via any other method. And now he does have the access to this device. He can do a whole of lot with this device. My duty, my job was to provide him an access. Any question? So this was first method, first way. Okay? Any further question? Was it difficult or was it easy? All right. Now next method. Next methods are telnet and SSH. The first method that we discussed was console, and for that we do need physical access to the device. These two methods, telnet and SSH, are remote access methods. Meaning, I do not have to be in the same building. I do not have to be connected physically or directly with the device. As long as that IP address is reachable, I could be anywhere in the world. As long as that IP address is reachable, I could access this device. So another thing that is a little different. Do we need an IP address for console access? No. I haven't configured any IP address. whatever things I have shown it to you, I have not configured or tried to put IP address anywhere in those communications. Yeah, I used COM port, but it was not an IP address, it was something else. For telnet and SSH, I do need an IP address. So if a device does not have an IP address, I cannot telnet or SSH that device. So first difference between console and telnet or SSH is we do need an IP address to access this. Alright. Next thing, both, even in fact all three of them, telnet, SSH console, they are CLI based methods. CLI means command line interface, meaning they are not GUI, graphical user interface. Like this one. Is it graphical? No. It's command based. Okay, and it's interactive. Like interactive means, for example, I do not know what do I have to do. I'll just put a question mark, and it will give me the list of all the commands. Again, I'm just selecting a random command. I'm using show. After doing show, I'll do a question mark. I'll see all the command outputs. I'll just select random things like profile. What does this mean? I'm not here to discuss those things. I'm just telling you. So I'll do a question mark. So all the other options. This is command line interface. Okay. So what are the similarities? Console, telnet, SSH. They all three are command line interface based. So there could be a possibility that the device is here on this table, and I could SSH it or I could telnet it. There could also be a possibility someone else in some other continent sitting, as long as he has IP address and the credentials like username and password, he could access this same device. Another thing is that this particular device, I could access it via console and I could access it via SSH or telnet as well, while we both are connected onto the same device. So it is not like that, oh, you do have access to console, now I cannot SSH it. No. Two different engineers or two different users can access the device at the same time as well. It's just way of doing things. It's just more options that we have. Any question? Next, telnet. What is the difference between telnet and SSH? Because there are multiple things which are similar. Now, telnet is not widely being used. Why? Because it is not secure. Why it is not secure? Because you could read the telnet communication. So if I'm accessing it remotely, my connection to that device is not secure. A hacker could intercept that information. They could collect the information, what is traveling in between. While SSH is the secure way and widely used or recognized way of accessing devices. In our today's demo setup, I could do telnet. Why? First of all, I do trust you guys, so please don't break it. Next thing, I am not connected onto the network. I may just take up a cable connected on the Ethernet port of my laptop and on the management port of this device. So there is no interception in between. Physically, there is no interception. But imagine a network which is like sitting across the continents or like across the states or across the city. My connection is not secure. If my connection is not secure, the interceptor or the hacker could intercept that information. What is that? So, as long as I am directly connected, there is no interception, there is no Wi-Fi connectivity onto it, I am physically connected, I'm safe with telnet. But it's not widely being used or recognized. Yes.
So why they use it if it's not?
It was created when SSH was not there.
So why they don't try completely shut it down?
Because there are some cases where we might have to use. But generally speaking, newer devices, telnet is disabled by default. SSH is the preferred way of using. For telnet, you may need a username or password or not. Even if you protect it via username or password, telnet communication is not secure. Like it's in his genes. It's not secure. It is not how it was being created. Well, SSH is to counter up that part. This is secure. Like it uses confidentiality, integrity, uses different methods to protect that data. But overall, telnet was not designed for this. And telnet was like a 30, 40-year-old code, you could say, or like protocol.
Yeah, that's actually one of the last ones.
Okay. Any further questions? So over here, like as I said, like as an example, if I do need to connect my laptop directly with the device, I'll use telnet. For this, sorry. Next, SSH not just only provides secure access, but it supports secure file transfers as well. You may have heard of a protocol, SFTP. If not, don't worry, we're gonna have discussion on that later. SSH is a secure way. It's the preferred choice. It is preferred because of its superior security features and browser functionality. With SSH, you cannot just access the device, you could do some other things as well, like secure file transfer, SFTP, which I just mentioned, SCP as well. Okay? Any question? No worries. Now, let's go on to the next slide. Now, we'll discuss how to access the same device which we just access via console with telnet. Okay, are you guys ready? So now if we are using telnet, so let me unplug this console. Okay, is console cable connected? No? So let's throw that off. Now what we're gonna use? Ethernet cable. Why? Because Ethernet cable is the cable that we are gonna plug in on the management port of this device. See? So who wants to plug
You
it?
still need the physical connectivity, right?
Yes, somewhere it will be, but it's like one-time connectivity. Please. It's a long cable, that is why I brought this. Awesome, perfect. So now, here's the other end, and there's one end. It is connected onto the management port. Is it blinking?
No.
Why?
It's not connected.
Because other end is not connected. Who wants to connect other end on your laptop? Next, SSH now. So this is the other end. Again, I am using you guys. I'm afraid I'm scared, so that's why I'm using you guys. blinking here? Yes, it is also blinking here. See? Magic. Nothing I just need to go. Okay? So I am happy, I am satisfied because now I can see some activity. I can also see some activity on here as well. If you guys could see, there's like red dot. I can see.
Yeah.
Alright, so we did first thing, like we did the physical connectivity. It might have already been there. So first thing is that if it's not there, just make sure that it's there. The other prerequisite should be that you do need an IP address to telnet that device, and that should be reachable. So for network reachability, we learned a thing in our last session. What was that? Yes, ping. Have you guys used that utility when you get back to home?
Yeah, we used it on a game.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Sometimes we like to test with our gaming servers that, okay, where we are seeing high response ping, and we just disconnect and try to connect with other servers. So if you cannot bear that latency with your games, just imagine, could companies bear all those losses? No, they might not. So that's why these tools and utilities are of importance. Okay. So we do need to know the IP address of the device. We do need to know IP address of the device. We do need to make sure that network reachability is there. So I already know that this device IP address is 192.168.1.1. How did I know? First thing, I work on these devices almost on daily basis, so that's one thing. Second thing, I made sure that this device is factory resetted, so it's like bare bones at level. Third thing is that whenever you do receive a device, they would provide you the default IP address, default username and password. If you have a router at home, just go back over there and see, it will be mentioned that this is the default IP address, this is the default username and password. Yes, I would encourage you to change the IP address or change the username password at least. So the same thing I did. But currently I'm using default information. Okay? One important thing that I wanted you to let you know, that we discussed that what is an IP address, but you guys you may not know how to configure an IP address on a Windows PC. Let's quickly cover that piece today as well. So over here, so here under network connections, and you would also test this on your machines. Under network connections, I connected this port on Ethernet cable, right? There could be many ports, there could be just one, depending on how your computer is. I do not know, every computer is different. But you could see over here that I do have an Ethernet cable. Okay? And this seems to be like connected. For instance, if I disconnect this port, do you see a difference?
Yeah.
It's a red cross. So what does this mean?
It's not connected.
It is not connected. If it's not connected, troubleshooting technique. Check your cable. Is this cable fine or not? It is a physical layer troubleshooting. So another tip. So if you're not connected on Ethernet, it could be a reason. Maybe your company has restricted your Ethernet port. It could be a possibility that you are connecting to a device that port might be shut down, physically down. If that's the case, you may have to log in it via CLI and you have to no shut or unshut that port. There could be a possibility you're using a round cable. All these what if scenarios are, you could say, are physical layer kind like of troubleshooting. So we just discussed some of the basic troubleshooting tips as well. Okay, let's connect it back and see a difference. Disconnect. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that my Ethernet port is properly open, working, physical cable is working, it has been there. So I have just shown you that. Now, if I do need to configure an IP address, what I'm going to do is that I'll double click on this Ethernet port because I know that this is the Ethernet port I'm using. It may look like this. Okay, and again, IPv4. The IP address we are using is IPv4 address. So I go over here under properties and do not have to write down, it will be recorded. So properties, when I go on to properties, I'll go into Internet Protocol version 4, IPv4. In IPv4, you could configure IP address. Okay. So my computer's IP address, I have already configured it, but this is the option. Do you guys remember I said that between 0 to 255 is the limit that we could have? Let's try to give 1.1.1. 1.1.1 is a valid IP?
No.
No?
Yes.
Yes, it is. It is a valid IP. If I click on OK, it will accept it. So I'm also revising you some previous things. Okay, is 311 a valid IP?
No.
Run ke chuke. What he's saying? He's saying 311 is not a valid entry. Please specify a value between 1 and 2 to 3. Why it's not 2 to 5? Those spaces are being reserved. What they are reserved for, those are different purposes. Multicasting and some other things. Okay? So the assignable IP address for us is basically between 1 and 2 to 3. The valid IP addresses are between, the numbers are between 0 and 255. Mathematically, we have covered that last time. Please review that session. So, I'm going to assign IP address 192.168.1.2. Okay, I'm just going to click OK and that's it. This is what we needed. Close. Now, what I told you is that my system, my computer's IP address is 192.168.1.2. So if I type ping 192.168.1.2, if I ping, my PC can ping himself. That's a good job. He can at least ping himself. So my PC is saying I can reach myself. Yes.
Is it different for different places? Like, is it all the same? Like it's in Illinois, right? Like, where you?
Yes, IP address would be different for different things. But since I own both the pieces and they are directly connected with each other, I'm just using the default IP address.
Alright.
So this laptop can ping himself. Okay? That's a good sign, it's promising. Okay, it's millisecond response, 1 millisecond. Remember last time we were seeing 60 milliseconds, 70 milliseconds?
Right.
And this makes sense, he's sending traffic to himself. It's not going or traversing across the devices or across the borders or across the states or continents. That is why there is no much more than millisecond response. If this system was doing the same thing for like at 100 megabits, at 100 milliseconds, then it means we do have some problems that we need to fix. But he himself is sending the traffic and he himself is receiving it. So that shouldn't be a problem. Okay? So my firewall's IP is, I already told you it's 192.168.1.1. How? I knew it. you should also know it for whatever device you are working on. So if I am playing this device 192.168.1.1, it's again reachable. So I do have comfort, I do have freedom. I know that yes, this connectivity via this cable is working. Okay? So we do know the IP address, the computer has an IP address, the firewall has an IP address, they both can ping pong to each other. So everything is there. Now what we need to do, it's very simple. Use that same tool, putty. Remember I plugged that serial cable when I was being a little dramatic. So that error is saying that, okay, there is no serial device connectivity any longer. Because when I plugged that down, it basically disconnected the session. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now what we need to do, if I go back to the slides. Sorry, yes, here, the tablet. So, use any tool. In our case, what we are going to use today, putty. Open putty. Select telnet option. You remember there were option serial, there were option others. Now today we are going to use telnet. Type IP address and it may ask for a password or not. That's right. Okay, so coming here. So I'm going to switch from SSH to serial, right? No, telnet, because we are doing that. Okay, so what is the IP address? 192.168.1.1. Okay, now I click on open. It's open in my this screen. Let's move it to here. Increase the font size for you guys. So here you could see this device is accessible. I'll just try the default username and password. And this device is accessible. So this is one way of doing this. Any question? थोड़ा rough तो नहीं हो रहा, surface से तो नहीं गुजर रहा. I know it's a little tough. Yes.
अभी दो IP address use करे 192.168.1.1 तो both are the same access on your system use करे.
So basically the question is that I have used two IP addresses. Why I have used two? Is that the question? Okay. Since we are learning IP communication, these devices are doing IP communication. At least they do need one IP address. So 192.168.1.2 is the IP address of my laptop, and 192.168.1 is the IP address of my firewall. Since both these devices are doing IP address communication, IPv4 communication, they both need an IP address. If I would have configured the same IP address on both these devices, they do not physically understand each other. They know each other via an IP address. So it would be a conflict if these both devices had same IP address. That is also one troubleshooting piece that you do need to understand. IP addresses should be unique in your network. Right? Otherwise, you're trying to reach 192.168.1.1, there are multiple devices, all will start to respond then. So computer is not that smart or intelligent, he would understand, okay, which one he wanted to do. ये नहीं देखता कि छोटा है, बड़ा है, दूर है, करीब है. So IP addresses should be globally unique if it's global communication, or in other cases it should be unique even if it's your local area.
How do we know that it's the same IP address not being used for
There are tools that you primarily use for that one. In this case, there would be no confusion because there is no repetition on it. If you're configuring same IP address on same device, it would prompt you as well that an interface already has that IP address. Like if you configure on some devices. Some devices may not do this, so it's like horses for courses kind of thing. But there should be a way of tracking all of these. Most important, if you're using DHCP in your environment, which is dynamic host configuration protocol, I think I have given you an idea. If not, we're going to discuss this later. If you're DHCP, using DHCP, so the purpose of DHCP is that whoever gets connected onto the network, he will assign an IP address. He's like a accountant of IP addresses. So as soon as a device gets connected, he will assign an IP address, and he has a complete pool of it. That okay, to this device I have assigned this IP address. To that device I have assigned this. I believe we had some discussion on this when the question was being asked that can IP addresses be assigned manually or not? Static IP was a discussion in our previous session. So there's a small portion we discussed, but the protocol itself, DHCP and DNS, we are covering this in next session. Any further question? Is telnet all clear? All good? Good to go? मुझे लगा कि तुमको समझ आ रही है.
You said like for the telnet you can do like remote access.
Yes.
So how can we do the remote access now?
How can we do remote access now?
Yeah, it's like if I wanna like remote access the device, how do we do that?
Okay, so how we will do that, it's a little tricky and a simple at the same time. Currently, I am physically connected, but imagine this firewall is in a data center. It has a public IP address and this device is reachable publicly. Assume it has IP address 1.1.1.1. Let's assume. So what you will do is that you will open a putty, you will type 1.1.1, that is a globally recognized IP address, that is globally unique, it is configured to the device, so you will connect with that IP address. So where we type 192.168.1.1, you will just type it 1.1.1.1 instead of this IP and you will get connected to this. So all the physical infrastructure that the cable should be connected onto this port, this cable would be going most likely into a switch, that switch most likely being connected with a router would have a public IP address. That is how all the pieces get all together. So someone, or might be you, it's your JD, that you might have prepared all this setup so that you could access. There are so many cases, what I have done is that I was in my office, I did receive the device, I physically accessed that device via console, I configured whatever I wanted to configure it, or I at least configured it so that I could telnet or SSH the device. I did all that pieces, went into the data center, plugged in the device, made sure that the reachability is there. Now I came back to my home, and while I was just enjoying or chilling or over the weekend, I remotely accessed that device via SSH with that IP address because I already did this piece when I was locally at my office, so that I could remotely access the same device. The problem with console is that whenever you need to make a change, you do have to go physically to the device to make that change. But once you have done this this physical connectivity piece in your office, now you can access anywhere at any time. We just need the IP address. We just need to make sure that it's SSH accessible. It should be reachable. SSH should be configured on the device so that I could remotely access whenever I want. Any question? Okay, next piece is almost same. Okay, let's do some drama game. Let's disconnect this cable. It is disconnected. Why? Because I have disconnected it.
You cannot manage it.
Oh, I cannot manage it. Again, a physical layer troubleshooting. You're trying to access your device, you know you physically did all of the things and you were previously able to access this. Now you would call your junior or a senior will call you guys and you will go into the data center and ask that, okay, what do you see on management port on that device? यार वो छोटे में जाके देखें उस device पे क्या है. अब आप गए वहाँ पे, you went into the data center, and you said, okay, there is no cable connected on it. So now what you need to do?
Connected physically.
Again, this is a very short thing, very small thing. But if it's not there, someone has to do this. And in that data center pieces, which we are discussing, this may be the things that you are doing in your first job or initial job. That you needed to make sure that, okay, the cables are up, running, physically connected, in that regards. In other regards, what you could do is that what I told you that, okay, just configure the device. Someone would be able to access remotely. As long as that device is accessible, you could remotely connect to it. Okay? Because the purpose of this course is at the beginner level, that is why I'm teaching you all those things. Okay. So we do expect this from a technician or a help desk guy or a remote support technician to at least know these things which they are doing. Okay? Like I when I started my career, I was doing this stuff back 14, 15 odd years back. Any question? So we discussed how to access a device via console. We discussed how to access a device via telnet. Is telnet widely being used in modern days? No, we do not want to do that. And definitely we disable that. By default it's disabled. On most of the devices it's already disabled. Third method is SSH. What is the difference between SSH and telnet?
Secure.
It's secure. And plus with SSH you could do much more functions on it. Okay? Let's quickly review the steps for SSH. It's almost identical. It's almost same. The same tools we are gonna use. The difference would be that the checkbox this time we're gonna use in putty would be SSH. Not telnet, not serial, no console. So how to access a device remotely via SSH? And what are the prerequisites? That's now we use this. So the prerequisite is that device should be accessible. Again, in order to check the physical reach, in order to check the reachability, what we did, what we use?
The cable and stuff, right?
Yes, but in order to check the reachability,
Ping.
yes, ping. We'll use ping to check either we are reachable to that device who we want to access via SSH or not. So the tool is same, the commands are same, and regardless of SSH or telnet, what we have to do, we just have to ping it. So it is pingable. As long as it's pingable, it's the part of our network, we could access it. Yes.
By using my system, I can just ping it and connect to the device, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can. But I cannot connect to Google server. I may not be able to connect to Amazon server. Why? Because they have restricted those things. So it's not like whatever IP you could ping, you could connect to that. It doesn't guarantee you. Because they have placed in those security parameters and all those things. In our setup, there's no security, even though I'm a security guy. But we have not implemented anything. But I can protect, I can secure, and I can do like so many other flavors. It's like you have so many ingredients, and using those ingredients you could do whatever you wanted to achieve. Okay, this is reachable, this is accessible, we try to access, now we are trying to access this via SSH. Alright, so let's go to Pati. So here it is. Pati or Putty, depends on you, whatever you want to use. Whatever, whatever. So what's the IP address that we are trying to access? 192.168.1. Okay. This time you see I am connecting on SSH. you may notice one difference. When I switched to telnet, it became 23. So again, it's a theoretical thing. Telnet and SSH, they both have port numbers. What is a port number? You could say in non-technical terms, this is kind of like a roll number.
Identity.
So, and again, like, if I need to block telnet across my network, I may block this port. If I need to block SSH, which I don't know why you would like to, but for instance, if you want to block SSH, you could block port 22. Since these protocols run on TCP, what is TCP? Transmission Control Protocol. This is a little different in our case. We are not covering it today, but we did have some glimpses when we were doing layer 4. So you may need to check that, okay, what port you are connecting to as well. There could be a possibility that SSH has a port 22, but you may be connecting onto port 1005 or port 2500. So if a device comes to you, they may give you that, okay, this is the IP address, but the port number is not regular port number, it could be a different port number. So just make sure that you are connecting onto the right port. So I'll switch to SSH. The default port number is 22. IP address is same. No changes overall. If I click on open, something happened here. Okay, here it is on this screen. And I'll just type default credentials. I'm just increasing the font. So you could see like the devices. Okay. Any question? Yes.
The port number will be same if I connect this on my device.
Via SSH?
Yes.
Basically the port number, it's a very good question. So the port number is of this device. COM port was my computer. Communication port, COM port was on my computer. This port number, which we changed, is basically the protocol SSH port number. So what I said to this device, that firewall, you do have to provide SSH access on your default port 23, on 22. On 22. If I am a security guy, which I am, and if I want this device to be in my data center, what I will do is that I might change this port number. Why? Because a hacker could not understand. Hacker would not know. Hacker knows that port 22 is an SSH. He would brute force me. He would try to hack me on that particular port. But if I change this to 10,001, he do not know. He might run a script in order to identify that thing, but he had to do so many other things in order to crack that. So the default port is 22 of SSH, and this device is running on default. But if I need to change that, I will change this. And port number is not of my computer. COM port was my computer's number. See, is it clear? I know it's little tricky, but I hope it should be clear. Any questions? So we learned how to access a router, a firewall, a switch via CLI, and we covered all three steps, all three methods. The first method was console. Second method was telnet. Third method was SSH. Now the fourth method that we are going to cover is HTTP and HTTPS, which is GUI, graphical user interface, GUI. Now modern devices are opting up for this option. If you need to access this firewall, the most powerful usability of this firewall is that this device has all the pieces, all the configurations in a graphical way. So you do not have to remember and recognize all the commands by itself. So graphical is always a better option because you could get connected easily with it. You do not have to figure it out by typing up the things. You could visually figure it out that where you want to go. So modern ways of connectivity are HTTP and HTTPS access. IP cameras you could access with them. You could also access them with CLI, but when we do need to debug, when we do need to troubleshoot, that is when we opt for CLI. But your day-to-day business should be happening on HTTP and HTTPS. Okay. So what is HTTP or what is HTTPS? Does anyone wants to give an idea? Have you guys ever heard of, ever used it before?
Google.
Excellent.
Google.
Excellent. Whenever you access a website, you may see these values, HTTP or HTTPS. Let's do, like I said to you something, and let's try to see if that's even true or not. All the way up. Okay, I type Google. If I click on this and go into the start, you see, I didn't type HTTP or HTTPS, it came by itself. Okay, so what is HTTP and HTTPS? So HTTP, I keep telling HTTP, and S is for security, and when we come on to that point, we'll discuss. So HTTP is a protocol used for transmitting data, generally over the internet. Generally, like as I said, we just have shown. HTTP can be used to access devices remotely via browser as well. Today we are going to do the same thing. This firewall, we are going to access this via a Google browser. Okay, so whenever HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, transfer protocol, it is used to exchange transmitting data. HTTP sends data in plain text format, same how Telnet was doing. That is why it's not secure. Okay? Which means that any data sent over an HTTP connection can be intercepted and read by anyone with access to the network. So same whatever the fallbacks or drawbacks were there in Telnet, same were in HTTP or is in HTTP. This lack of encryption makes HTTP susceptible to security threats like eavesdropping and data manipulation. Okay, so what's the alternative? HTTPS. S is for? You could say security, but actually it's SSL TLS behind the scene, which is again security, easier. So HTTPS is commonly used for transmitting sensitive information such as login credentials, payment details, and personal data. If you do go to any banking website, it would not be a HTTP session. It will always be an HTTPS session. This is where standards would come out. Most of the communication, in fact, now I could say that almost all of the communication is HTTPS based communication. Why? Because HTTP is not secure. And that is why when we connect these devices, when we access these devices, all of them should be HTTPS based. Okay? Any questions so far? Alright. Now, this is one of the easiest way of connecting. Why? The prerequisites are already there. And it's almost same. If you do see, the prerequisites are almost same. With this method even, we do need to make sure that the reachability is there, which we already have tested, by the way. We did ping our computer, we did ping our laptop, we did ping the firewall. So the reachability is not a question at this point. Okay, we already knew it's reachable. But if I'm accessing a device for the first time, I may try to see that if that device is not reachable. Next thing, I do need to know the IP address where I'm going to get connected. Serial or console was the only way where I do not need an IP address. Because I was the IP address myself. I was doing the physical part of it. I was the physical labor on that thing. But in this case, same as SSH, Telnet, and in HTTP or HTTPS access, I do need to know the IP address where I'm trying to get connected. Okay? It's easy, it's simple. What I do need to do, I just have to go on to browser, which is where I am right now. Over here, I would just go over here, type 192.168.1.1. Okay, it is saying that this device is not secure, which is true. I haven't done anything to make it secure. And this is a certificate-based error. This is beyond the scope even of far. If we'll have a course next time, that is even beyond the limits of that piece. So do not get confused or worried about it. But here is the device, Palo Alto Networks firewall. This is a firewall. So let me type username and password. And I have given it, boom, it's getting connected, creating administrative session. It's more intuitive, it's more attractive, more interactive, more easier. Okay, so
GUI.
this is GUI, graphical user interface. So whatever I could do with commands, I could do it from here. But again, you do have to blend the product that what you are accessing. As long as I have done this piece of accessibility, again, now I could give this to my senior colleague. He could access this device. He can access this and configure whatever we want to do. I could see everything in person or in live or in graphical way. Like the device of this IP address is this. I knew that is how I got connected to it. Okay. I knew what is the device name and other information which may not be necessary at this point for you guys, but this is the fourth way of connecting a device. I don't think in your jobs you would find any other way of connecting to these devices. So as long as you could master this thing, you should be good to go to provide access to anyone else. And in fact, if you guys would create a resume, I would suggest you to create resume because most probably you guys are going to apply for a job. In this case, you should give this information that yes, you do know and you have learned, you have physically done the accessibility of these devices. Like you know how to telnet a device, you know how to SSH to a device, you know how to access device via console, serial, and HTTP. Any question? Because my session is ending. This is what I wanted to teach you. If you guys want to stay here, you could stay. The piece equipment is here. If you guys wanted to test it, feel free to do this test. But if you don't have any questions, just let me know. We will end the session. Any questions? No? Alright, thank you so much for joining me today. We can do now labs.